Can I use
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Thank you very much that I get this opportunity to talk about the concept of evil and the banality of evil here at Bard College, where Hannah Arendt taught. So that is amazing for me to do that. I'm from Denmark, Roskilde University. My name is Jakob Rendtorff. And I have, from some years ago, we have together tried to make a book on Hannah Arendt, and in particular this concept of the banality of evil applied to modern philosophy or to modern times. And it was a tough work to make the book. Actually, the two editors didn't speak with each other 2 years after. So, and we also disagreed at some very fundamental things about how to interpret Arendt, because I thought that it was possible to generalize the concept of banality of evil and use it as a lot of phenomenon of evil in modern times, while my companion, who was co-editor, he said this concept only applies to Eichmann, and Eichmann is a very particular figure, and we cannot generalize the concept. What he said about that we couldn't generalize the concept was the idea that Eichmann was a bureaucrat who was killing at a distance, that it was the concept of distance which actually was very important for the banality of evil, because he never saw the victims. So in this sense, banality of evil is a bureaucrat who is following orders and who never sees the victims. And this is a very strict position compared to a much broader position. Then we had also another disagreement, and that was my co-editor. He thought that Arendt somewhat should have been more inspired by psychoanalysis. He used Lacan, the psychoanalytic philosopher, to interpret Eichmann, and he said that Eichmann was a cynicist in some way, that he was there was this kind of sadism hidden in this personality, this strange split of the personality between being nice to his friends, the Jews, but you have to follow orders. I'm nice to you personally, but I have to put you into the concentration camp as following orders. So it's kind of very strange psychoanalytic themes in Eichmann. I don't know whether I agree with that. My interpretation of the banality of evil is actually to generalize the concept, and here I think I would say that Hannah Arendt, there's a certain existentialism behind her philosophy, would be my approach. Actually, to say, if you go to the existentialist tradition, you have the idea that when you choose yourself or you choose life and so on, you set a norm for good and evil. You choose at the same time good and evil. So when you choose, you cannot choose evil, in a sense. When you choose, you set a norm, and it is in a sense contradictory with yourself to choose evil, because then evil would be a good for you, because then you choose it as a good. If you choose to as a project in life, it's a good for you. So it's not evil. It can be a very academic discussion, but it shows something about freedom, and in this sense, the person who is a problematic person is the person who is not able to choose between good and evil, and that is the person who has the banality, I would argue, because that is before the choice of good and evil, so to say. That is the person. That is perhaps how you can interpret the concept of thoughtlessness in Hannah Arendt. But what we did in the book was to apply the concept of banality of evil to modernity. We have different articles. And of course, I think perhaps what is very important in the book is the idea of an intention, not a structural, a functional interpretation of what was going on, of evil, what was going on in the Holocaust, and evil, as opposed to an intentional interpretation. The idea of there's the intentional interpretation is, well, the Germans were, so to say, willing executioners. The structuralist interpretation is to say, well, people were in some way put into a number of roles, and this structural system was producing evil. Good people can, in bad systems, produce evil, and that, I think, is a very important insight in Hannah Arendt's philosophy, that we have this problem that there's a certain, the collectivity, the system of the collectivity can produce a lot of evil, even though individuals, if they really start to think, they realize, well, this was evil. The problem is the role, the bureaucratic role, the inability to put yourself in the place of the other, which is very important for Arendt in the concept of judgment. And I think we have many examples of that in modern times, where we can use this idea of the concept of evil, of banality of evil. For example, we can analyze systems of administrative systems, how people act just doing their jobs without looking at the individual that they treat in their administrative function. We can look at healthcare systems where patients are becoming numbers in the systems and not real people. We can look at, for example, at the current financial crisis, where we can say that also the business person in the bank is referring to greed, rather than looking at the people behind, not being able to put themselves in the place of the other. So in this sense, I think with this concept, there are many applications of the concept of the banality of evil. We can, for example, terrorism can be analyzed from that point of view. We can have the events Saddam Hussein, when he was found in the hole in the earth, is an example of, you create some figures being very evil, and then there's only a human being behind. So this is there's something about the system producing evil. But of course, there's still the debate whether you can say that such persons that evil is only a function of the role in the system, and that the person did not really intend evil, because you have the problem that Eichmann. Well, Arendt says he was very that he was thoughtless, but he was also very intelligent. And recently in France, I think actually by an American, there's a book by somebody he's called Jonathan Littell. The book is written in French, it's called Les Bienveillants in French, the good willing, and it is about an SS officer who reached philosophy and literature, and at the same time he is at the front in the war committing atrocities. I think here it's important to distinguish between knowing about philosophy, knowing about things, and then having the moral capacity to put yourself in the place of the other. So the banality of evil is linked to not having this moral capacity. Thank you very much.